Billionaire CEO got a chilling call at 2 a.m. on Halloween night. He arrived to find her trembling. Then she whispered 3 words. "Don't leave me." 3 words, whispered by a woman I'd never met, in a house that shouldn't have had anyone in it, on Halloween night. At 2:47 a.m., her voice was shaking so violently I could hear her teeth chattering through the phone. "Please," she begged. "Please, I can't call the police. Not yet. I just need someone to come. There's someone in the house. I can't find my nephew. Please." I should have hung up. I should have told her she had the wrong number. But something in her voice, the raw terror, the desperate hope that someone, anyone would answer, it wrapped around my chest like a vice. "Where are you?" I asked. "Hollowbrook Estate," she whispered. Then silence. Not the silence of a dropped call, the silence of someone holding their breath, hiding. "Hello," I said. "Are you there?" Then I heard it, through her phone, footsteps, slow, deliberate, getting closer, and she whispered one more time, so faint I almost missed it. "Please come." The line went dead. I grabbed my keys and ran. Now, before I tell you what I found when I got there, before I tell you about the man in the plague doctor, mask, the hidden cameras, and the secret that would unravel everything, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now if you believe in showing up for people, even strangers. Subscribe to Mr Hearthline Stories, because what you're about to hear will stay with you long after this video ends. And drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from, or just say I am with you, Mr Hearthline, so I know you're here for this journey. Because what happened that Halloween night didn't just change her life, it changed mine. Forever. My name is Beckett Hayes, and this is the story of how a wrong number became the rightest thing that ever happened to me. Let me take you back, to the beginning, to the moment before the call, before I knew her name, before I knew what fear really looked like in someone's eyes. It was October 31st, Halloween, 2:47 in the morning. Most of the city was asleep, or stumbling home from costume parties, or passed out, on their friends' couches surrounded by empty beer bottles and discarded masks. But I was awake, standing in my penthouse office on the 42nd floor, looking out, over Seattle like some kind of restless ghost haunting his own life. The skyline glittered below me. Skyscrapers stretched toward the sky, their windows blinking with the scattered light of insomniacs and night shift workers. In the distance, I could see the last remnants of the city's Halloween celebrations. Jack-o'-lanterns flickering on apartment balconies, a few costume-clad stragglers weaving toward waiting ride-shares, plastic skeletons hanging from streetlights swaying in the October wind. The night had that strange, hollow quality that comes after a celebration ends, like the world exhaling after holding its breath too long. I took a sip of whiskey. Expensive stuff, the kind that's supposed to taste like success. It burned going down, but it didn't warm me. Nothing did anymore. My reflection stared back at me from the floor-to-ceiling windows. 34 years old, 6'2", dark hair that probably needed a cut, wearing a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up and dress pants because I'd been on a video call with the London office 3 hours ago and hadn't bothered to change. I looked successful. I looked put together. I looked like exactly what I was. A billionaire CEO who'd built an empire from nothing. Sentinel Security Systems. That's my company. We design and install security infrastructure for corporations, governments, high-net-worth individuals. Surveillance, threat detection, crisis management. I'd started it when I was 23 with a laptop, a dream, and more anger than sense. 9 years later, I had offices in 12 countries, 3,000 employees, a net worth that Forbes estimated at $1.7 billion, though it fluctuated depending on the market. I had everything I'd ever wanted, and nothing I actually needed. The penthouse around me was proof of that. 12,000 square feet of minimalist luxury, Italian marble floors, designer furniture that looked great but nobody ever sat on, a kitchen with professional-grade appliances I never used because I ate most meals at. My desk or in restaurants where the staff knew my name but not a single thing about me. There were no photos on my walls, no family portraits, no pictures of friends at weddings or vacations or graduation ceremonies, just expensive art I'd bought because my interior designer said it would appreciate in value. My bedroom was down the hall. King-sized bed, Egyptian cotton sheets, a view of the water, and every single night I slept alone. not because I couldn't find company. Women threw themselves at billionaires. It's a fact of life. But every relationship I'd attempted in the past 5 years had the same trajectory. Initial attraction. A few months of pretending we had something real. Then, the inevitable moment when I'd realized they loved my bank account more than they'd ever loved me. So I stopped trying. I stopped pretending. I buried myself in work and told myself it was enough. But nights like this, Halloween, they had a way of pulling up memories I usually kept locked away. I walked over to the window and pressed my palm against the cold glass. Somewhere out there, families were tucked into bed. Parents were sneaking into their kids' Halloween candy. Couples were curled up on couches watching horror movies. People were connected. People belonged to each other. And I was here, alone, the way I'd always been. I grew up in foster care, 6 different homes between the ages of 4 and 16. My biological parents, I don't remember them. Apparently my mother dropped me at a fire station when I was 3 with a note that said I'm sorry. That was it. No name, no explanation, just sorry. The foster homes were mixed. Some were fine. Some were not. None of them were home. I learned early that nobody was coming to save me, that if I wanted anything in this life, I'd have to take it myself. But there was one night, one Halloween, when I was 6 years old. That changed everything. I was placed with a family in Tacoma, the Mercers. They weren't bad people, just overwhelmed. They had 4 other foster kids and 2 biological children of their own. We were bodies in beds. Checks from the state, not family. That Halloween, they went to a party, left us with a babysitter, some teenager who was supposed to watch us, but spent the whole night in the basement with her boyfriend getting high. I woke up to smoke, thick, choking, burning my lungs. The house was on fire. Faulty wiring in the kitchen, they said later. It spread fast. I remember screaming, calling for help, banging on the babysitter's door, but she didn't hear me. Or maybe she did, and she was too far gone to care. I got out through my bedroom window, landed in the bushes, broke my wrist, sat on the curb in my Superman pajamas watching the fire trucks arrive, watching the flames eat the house, watching firefighters pull the other kids out one by one, and the whole time I kept thinking, nobody's coming for me. Nobody even knows I'm here. That thought, that crushing, terrifying loneliness, it never really left me. The fire was ruled an accident. The babysitter faced charges. The Mercers lost their fostering license, and I got moved to another home. And then another, and another. By the time I aged out of the system at 18, I'd learned the most important lesson of my childhood. You can't rely on anyone but yourself. So that's what I did. I relied on myself. I worked 3 jobs while putting myself through community college. I taught myself to code using library computers. I lived in my car for 8 months while building the first prototype of what would become Sentinel Security. And when the company took off, when the money started rolling in, when I became the success story people wrote articles about, I told myself I'd made it. I told myself I didn't need what other people had. Connection, family, love. But standing there at 2:47 in the morning on Halloween night, staring at my reflection in the glass, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. I was still that 6-year-old kid sitting on the curb, still alone, still waiting for someone to come. That's when my phone buzzed. It was sitting on my glass desk across the room. The vibration echoed in the silence. Sharp, insistent. I turned, walked over, looked at the screen. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I get a lot of spam calls, a lot of people trying to reach me for investments, partnerships, donations. My personal number is supposed to be private, but it gets out. But something, instinct maybe, or just the particular loneliness that settles in at 3 a.m., made me swipe to accept. Hello, I said. For a moment, nothing. Just breathing. Heavy, ragged, panicked. Then, a woman's voice, shaking so violently I could barely understand her. Oh. Thank God. Thank God. Please, I need help. I can't call the police. Not yet. She broke off. A stifled sob cut through the line. Every nerve in my body went on alert. Who is this? I asked. I'm sorry, she stammered. I'm so sorry. Your number? It was on the flyer. The emergency contact for the Hollowbrook Estate event. I thought you were still there. I thought. Slow down, I said. My voice was firm, but calm. Years of managing crisis situations had trained me to stay level-headed when others panicked. Where are you? Hollowbrook Estate, she said. The old Victorian on Craftsman Hill. There was a charity haunted house event tonight. I'm a volunteer, but everyone's gone, and I can't. Her voice splintered, shattered like glass. I can't find my nephew, she whispered. And there's someone. She stopped, abruptly, like someone had grabbed her. Hello, I said. My pulse quickened. Are you there? Nothing. Then, so faint, I almost missed it, a whisper. He's coming. I heard it then. Through her phone. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. The creak of old wood. Getting closer. My entire body tensed. Where are you in the building? I asked. Storage room, she breathed. Second floor, east wing. Please. My phone's almost dead, and The footsteps stopped. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then she whispered, Please, come. And the line went dead. I stared at my phone for exactly 3 seconds. My mind was racing, calculating. This could be a prank. Could be a setup. Could be someone trying to lure me somewhere for God knows what reason. But her voice, the terror in it, that wasn't fake. I'd heard fear before, real fear, and that was it. I grabbed my keys off the desk, grabbed my jacket, ran for the elevator. My Audi R8 was in the private garage beneath the building. I slid behind the wheel and punched Hollowbrook Estate into the GPS, 14 minutes away. I made it in 9. The streets were empty. Rain had started to fall. Light. Misty. The kind that makes everything look like it's underwater. I blew through red lights. Took corners too fast. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I kept thinking about her voice. Please, come. Like I was her last hope. Like she'd gambled everything on a stranger answering the phone. Why didn't she call the police, I wondered. What was she afraid of? Hollowbrook Estate sat on the edge of the city like a Gothic nightmare. I'd heard of it. Everyone in Seattle had. It was a historical landmark, built in 1876 by some lumber baron who'd gone insane and allegedly murdered his entire family in the house before hanging himself in the ballroom. Urban legend, probably. But the house had that reputation. During October, the local historical society rented it out for charity events, haunted house tours, horror movie screenings, Halloween attractions. But now, at 3 a.m, it was completely dark. I pulled up the long, winding driveway. Gravel crunched under my tires. The headlights cut through the rain and illuminated the mansion. It was massive. 3 stories of crumbling Victorian architecture, turrets and gables, broken shutters hanging at odd angles, ivy crawling up the walls like grasping fingers, wrought iron gates sagging on their hinges. There were no other cars, no lights, just the skeletal silhouette of the house against a clouded moon. I killed the engine and stepped out. The air was cold, sharp. It smelled like rain-soaked leaves and something else, something acrid, like burnt plastic or electrical fire. Hello, I called out. My voice echoed across the empty grounds. The wind answered. It pulled at my jacket, rustled through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a shutter banged against the side of the house. I moved toward the front entrance. The double doors were ajar, one hanging loosely from its top hinge. Inside, darkness swallowed everything. I pulled out my phone and activated the flashlight. The beam cut through the blackness and illuminated the entry hall. It was like stepping into a nightmare. The walls were covered in peeling floral wallpaper. A dusty chandelier hung from the ceiling, half its crystals missing. The floor was littered with the remnants of the night's festivities. Fake cobwebs, deflated decorations, a bowl of candy corn overturned on a side table, the pieces scattered like tiny traffic cones. You called me, I said loudly. I'm here. Where are you? No answer, just the sound of my own breathing, the creak of the old house settling, the faint drip of water from a leak somewhere above. I moved deeper inside, through the main hall, past a parlor filled with fake tombstones and cobwebbed mannequins dressed as ghosts, down a narrow corridor lined with portraits whose eyes seemed to follow my movements. The beam of my flashlight swept across peeling paint, cracked plaster, dark doorways that opened into even darker rooms. Then I heard it, faint, coming from deeper in the house, a soft, rhythmic thumping. I followed the sound, through a drawing room, past a dining area with a long table covered in dust, down another hallway. The thumping grew louder. It was coming from a door at the end of the corridor. A storage room, maybe. The door was closed. I approached slowly, quietly. My heart was pounding. Every instinct I had was screaming that this was a bad idea, that I should turn around, call the cops, let professionals handle it. But I thought about her voice. Please come. I reached for the doorknob, turned it, pushed the door open. The room was small, cluttered with old furniture, boxes stacked against the walls, a single window covered with a sheet, and in the corner, crouched low, knees pulled to her chest, was a woman. She looked up as my flashlight found her. Her face was streaked with tears and dirt. Her dark auburn hair had come loose from whatever style it had been in, falling in wild tangles around her shoulders. She wore a simple black sweater and jeans beneath a vintage carnival worker's vest, probably part of the event's costuming. Her eyes were wide, glassy with fear, red from crying, and in her arms, clinging to her like his life depended on it, was a small boy, no older than 6. He was dressed in a dinosaur costume. The hood was pulled low over his face. His body was shaking. For a moment, neither of us moved. We just stared at each other, two strangers connected by a desperate phone call in the middle of the night. Then her lips trembled, and she whispered 3 words that would change everything. Don't leave me. Her voice cracked on the last word. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I knelt slowly, carefully, keeping my movements non-threatening. I put my phone down so the light angled upward, illuminating the room without blinding her. I'm not going anywhere, I said quietly. She exhaled, a shaky, shuddering breath, like she'd been holding it since I walked in. Are you hurt? I asked. She shook her head. No, we're okay. We're okay. The boy didn't look up. He kept his face buried in her shoulder. His little hands were fisted in her sweater. What happened? I asked. She swallowed hard, tried to steady her breathing. My name is Harper Calloway. This is my nephew, Rowan. I've been volunteering here all month for the haunted house fundraiser. Tonight was the last night. We were closing up, me and 3 other volunteers, when the power went out. Generator failure? I asked. Maybe. I don't know. She shook her head. But then we heard someone upstairs. Footsteps. Heavy ones. At first we thought it was part of the crew, someone doing final checks, but everyone had already left. We called out. No answer. Did you see anyone? Harper looked down at the boy in her arms. Rowan did. He was in the parlor, waiting for me while I locked up the ticket booth. He came running. Said there was a man in a mask watching him from the staircase. I thought it was just his imagination. The whole house is full of props and scare actors. But then I saw him too. Describe him. Tall, she said, wearing a plague doctor mask. You know, the kind with the long beak and a long black coat. He didn't say anything. Just stood there at the top of the stairs, tilting his head, like he was studying us. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. I grabbed Rowan and we ran. We hid in here. How long ago? 40 minutes. Maybe more. I tried calling 911, but there's no signal in this part of the house. I found a flyer in my pocket from setup week. It had an emergency number on it for the event coordinator. I called it. I got you. I shook my head. I've never been involved with this event. You must have gotten a wrong number. Her face crumpled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know who else. Hey, my voice was gentle but firm. You did the right thing. I'm here now. She looked at me, really looked at me, and something shifted in her expression. Not relief exactly, but a fragile, tentative hope. Why did you come? She whispered. You didn't know me. You could have ignored it. I held her gaze. I don't ignore people who need help. A sound echoed from somewhere above us. Slow, deliberate. Footsteps. Harper's entire body went rigid. The boy whimpered softly. I rose to my feet and positioned myself between them and the door. Stay here, I said. Don't move. No, Harper started. I looked back at her. Trust me. She stared at me for a long, breathless moment, then nodded. I picked up my phone and stepped out of the room, closed the door softly behind me, stood in the hallway listening. The footsteps were coming from upstairs, directly above me, slow and measured, like someone pacing or searching. I moved through the house like a shadow, every sense heightened, every nerve alive. I'd been in dangerous situations before, hostile corporate takeovers that turned physical, security breaches that required hands-on intervention. I knew how to handle myself. The staircase was at the far end of the hall, wide, grand, the kind you see in old movies where women in ball gowns descend to waiting suitors. But now the railing was broken in places. The carpet runner was torn and stained. I climbed slowly, testing each step before putting my full weight on it. The wood groaned beneath me. At the top, a long hallway stretched in both directions. Doors lined both sides. Most were closed, but one at the far end stood open. I approached slowly. The footsteps had stopped. The silence was worse than the sound. I reached the open door and looked inside. The room was empty, just old furniture covered in sheets, a broken mirror leaning against one wall, and a window, pried open from the outside. Rain was blowing in. The curtains were soaked, billowing inward like ghosts. I scanned the room. No plague doctor, no intruder, nothing. But on the windowsill, barely visible in the beam of my flashlight, was a small carved pumpkin, the kind you'd use for decoration, and inside it, nestled among the scraped-out seeds, was a phone. Still on, still recording. My blood went cold. I picked up the phone carefully. The screen showed a live feed, multiple camera angles, different views of the house's interior. One showed the storage room where Harper and Rowan were hiding. Another showed the hallway I was standing in. Another showed the front entrance, the parlor, the dining room. Someone had been watching. The entire time, every move we made. This wasn't random. This wasn't some Halloween prank gone wrong. Someone had planned this, set this up, targeted this event, targeted Harper. I pocketed the phone and moved quickly back downstairs. My mind was racing. If someone had planted cameras, they could still be watching, could be nearby, could be waiting. When I reached the storage room, I pushed the door open. Harper was standing now. Rowan was still in her arms. Both of them were shaking. "We need to leave," I said. Now. Harper didn't argue, didn't ask questions. She just nodded and held Rowan tighter. I led them through the darkened corridors, past the peeling portraits and overturned decorations, through the main hall, out the front doors into the cold October rain. We didn't stop, didn't look back. We ran across the gravel driveway to my car. I unlocked it remotely. "Get in," I said. Harper climbed into the passenger seat with Rowan still clinging to her. I slid behind the wheel and locked the doors. Started the engine, turned the heat up full blast. For a moment, we just sat there, breathing hard. The rain drummed on the roof. The headlights illuminated the mansion in front of us. It looked even more menacing now, like it was watching us, waiting. I pulled out my phone and called my head of security. He answered on the second ring. "Garrett, I need a full sweep team at Hollowbrook Estate. Now, anonymous surveillance equipment, possible stalking situation, and get the police involved, quietly." I ended the call and looked at Harper. She was trembling. Rowan had his face buried in her neck. I reached behind me and grabbed my jacket from the back seat. "Put this on," I said. Harper took it with shaking hands and wrapped it around herself and Rowan like a blanket. "I found cameras," I said quietly, "hidden throughout the house. Someone's been watching." Harper's face went ashen. "Watching us. The whole event, maybe. I don't know yet, but we're going to find out." I shifted the car into drive. "Where do you live?" "Northbrook," she said. Her voice was barely audible. "About 20 minutes from here. I'm taking you home. You don't have to." "Harper." I turned to face her fully. "Someone targeted that event tonight. Until I know why and who, you're not going anywhere alone." She stared at me. Tears welled in her eyes again, but this time not from fear, from something else, something that felt like the first crack in a dam that had been holding back too much for too long. "Thank you," she whispered. Rowan shifted in her arms. He finally looked up at me with wide, solemn eyes. "Are you a superhero?" he asked. His voice was small, soft, the first words he'd spoken since I arrived. I smiled faintly. "No, buddy. Just someone who answered the phone." Harper's apartment was in a modest complex in Northbrook. 3-story building, faded blue siding, a small playground out front with swings that squeaked in the wind. I parked in visitor parking and walked him to the door. Harper fumbled with her keys. Her hands were still shaking. I took them gently and unlocked the door for her. The apartment was small but warm. Soft lighting, walls covered in framed children's drawings, a worn couch piled with blankets and stuffed animals. A tiny kitchen with a calendar stuck to the fridge, marked with shift schedules at some place called Maplewood Elementary. Harper carried Rowan down the hallway. "I'll be right back," she said. I stood in the living room, hands in my pockets, taking in the quiet evidence of a life lived with care and very little else. There were bills stacked neatly on the kitchen counter. Electric, water, credit card statements, a past due notice for something I couldn't quite see. On the mantel above a small electric fireplace was a photo. Harper and Rowan, both grinning. Covered in paint, they were standing in front of an easel. Rowan was holding up a picture he'd drawn. It looked like a dinosaur eating a rainbow. They looked happy, genuinely, completely happy. Harper returned a few minutes later. She'd changed out of the carnival vest. Now she wore an oversized sweater and yoga pants. Her hair was still tangled, but she'd pulled it back into a messy bun. "He's asleep," she said quietly. Finally, she closed his bedroom door softly behind her and walked into the living room. For a moment she just stood there, looking lost in her own home. "How are you?" I asked. She laughed, but it was hollow, broken. "Honestly, I don't know." She sank onto the couch and pulled her knees to her chest. I hesitated, then sat beside her, careful to leave space between us. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just heavy, weighted with everything that had happened. "I need to tell you something," Harper said after a long moment, "about why I was so scared tonight." "You don't owe me," I started. "I do." She looked at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but clear. "Determined. Because you came. Because you stayed. And because I haven't told anyone the whole truth." I waited. Harper took a shaky breath. "Rowan isn't just my nephew. He's my son now, legally, emotionally, every way that matters. My sister, his mom, she died 2 years ago. Car accident. She was my only family. So, I took him in." "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "His father," she paused. "He was never in the picture. My sister wouldn't even tell me his name. She said it was better if he didn't know. Better if Rowan didn't know. And for 2 years, that was fine. We were fine. Just the two of us. But 6 months ago, Rowan started having nightmares." Harper's voice dropped. "He said a man was watching him. At the playground. At school. I thought it was trauma from losing his mom. I took him to a therapist. She said it was normal. Grief manifesting as anxiety. You didn't believe her. I wanted to." Harper shook her head. "But then I started noticing things. A car that parked outside our building too often. Always a different color, but the same make and model. Someone in a crowd at the grocery store who turned away too quickly when I looked at them. A feeling, like we were being followed. Did you go to the police?" "I tried. They said without evidence, there wasn't much they could do. Told me to keep a log, take photos if I saw anything suspicious. But it was never obvious enough, never concrete. Just a feeling. And tonight," her voice broke. "Tonight when Rowan said he saw someone in a mask, I knew. I knew it wasn't random. I knew someone had been watching us, waiting." She covered her face with her hands. "I grabbed him and we ran. We hid. And all I could think was, if something happens to me, what happens to him? Who takes care of him? He's already lost so much." I reached out slowly and placed my hand on her shoulder. She didn't pull away. "You're safe now," I said. "How do you know?" "Because I'm going to make sure of it." Harper looked at me. Really looked. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." I leaned back against the couch. My gaze drifted to the hallway where Rowan's nightlight glowed faintly beneath the door. "I know what it's like to be alone when you're scared. I said, "and I know what it's like to wish someone had shown up." "What do you mean?" I took a breath. Let the words come. I grew up in foster care, moved around a lot. One of my placements, when I was about Rowan's age, the house caught fire on Halloween night. Faulty wiring, they said later. I woke up to smoke and flames. I called for help, but no one came. The family had gone out, left me with a babysitter who was asleep downstairs, high on something. Harper's hand moved to her mouth. I got out through a window, landed in the bushes, broke my wrist, sat on the curb watching the fire trucks come. And I remember thinking, no one's coming for me. No one even knows I'm here. My jaw tightened at the memory. So when you called tonight, scared and alone, asking for help, I couldn't not come. Harper stared at me. And in that moment, the space between us collapsed. Not physically, but emotionally. The wall she'd been holding up crumbled. She reached out and took my hand. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. We sat there in the quiet warmth of her small apartment. Two strangers who weren't strangers anymore. Two people who understood what it meant to survive, to keep going when everything told you to give up. Outside, the rain fell harder. The wind rattled the windows. But inside, for the first time in a long time, neither of us felt alone. Harper fell asleep eventually, curled up on the couch, exhaustion finally winning over adrenaline. I stayed awake, watching, keeping guard. My phone buzzed with updates from Garrett. The sweep team had arrived at Hollowbrook Estate. Police were on scene. They'd found the cameras, found evidence of forced entry through the second-floor window, found the plague doctor mask discarded in the yard, but no sign of whoever had been wearing it. I looked at Harper sleeping. Her face was peaceful now. The fear finally gone from her expression. I didn't know what this was, this pull I felt toward her, toward them. I'd built my entire adult life on being self-sufficient, on not needing anyone. But sitting here in her living room, listening to the quiet sounds of her breathing, of Rowan's soft snores from down the hall, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose, connection, a reason to show up. My phone buzzed again, a text from Garrett. We pulled footage from the cameras. "You need to see this." I stood quietly so I wouldn't wake Harper, grabbed my jacket, and stepped outside into the hallway. I called Garrett. "What did you find?" He was silent for a moment. Then, this wasn't random, Beckett. Whoever planted those cameras, they weren't watching the event. They were watching her. Harper Calloway. There are hours of footage, just focused on her, following her movements, zooming in on her face. My stomach turned. How long? Based on the timestamps. 6 months, maybe longer. The same time, Rowan started having nightmares. "Get me everything," I said. "I want to know who planted those cameras, where they bought the equipment, every digital footprint. I don't care what it costs. Already on it." We traced the purchase to a private investigator. Guy named Mills, works out of Bellevue. We're bringing him in for questioning now. Good. And Garrett. Yeah, I want round-the-clock security on Harper's building. Discreet. She doesn't need to know, but nobody gets near her or that kid without us knowing about it. Understood. I ended the call and stood in the hallway. My mind was racing. A private investigator. That meant someone had hired him. Someone with money. Someone with a reason to watch Harper. Who and why? I went back inside. Harper was still asleep. I sat back down in the chair across from the couch and watched her. Whatever this was, whoever was behind it, they'd made a mistake. They'd called the wrong number, and now they had me to deal with. If this story is already gripping you, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. You don't want to miss what happens next. And drop a comment. Have you ever felt like someone was watching you? Let me know below. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a constant presence in Harper's life. Not intrusive, not overbearing, but there, steady, unflinching. The first morning after Halloween, I showed up at her apartment at 7 with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. Harper answered the door looking exhausted, like she hadn't slept after I left. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "I know." I handed her the coffee. But I did anyway. Rowan peeked out from behind her legs, still wearing his dinosaur pajamas, his hair sticking up in every direction. He looked at me with those big solemn eyes. "Hi, Mr. Beckett," he said quietly. Hey, buddy. I crouched down to his level. You like pancakes? He nodded. Good, because I'm terrible at making them, and I need your help. That earned a small smile. Harper let me in. We sat at her tiny kitchen table and ate together. Rowan told me about his favorite dinosaurs. The Triceratops was the best because it had 3 horns and could fight T-Rexes. Harper watched us with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. After breakfast, I told her about the cameras, about the private investigator, about the footage. She went pale. Someone's been watching me for 6 months. We're going to find out who, I said. My team is on it. But in the meantime, I want to make sure you're safe. Harper shook her head. I can't afford private security. You're not paying for it. Beckett. Harper. I leaned forward. Let me help. Please. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. That afternoon, my security team swept her apartment. They found a listening device, hidden in the smoke detector in the hallway. Harper stood in the living room holding Rowan, watching as they removed it. Her face was a mixture of horror and rage. Someone's been in my home, she whispered, listening to us, to everything. I walked over and placed my hand on her shoulder. Not anymore. The tech who'd found the device bagged it carefully. We'll trace this, he said. Find out where it was purchased. Who installed it? Harper looked at me. What if? What if they come back? They won't. I gestured to the 2 men standing by the door. You're going to have security monitoring your building 24/7. Cameras on all entry points. Alerts if anyone unfamiliar tries to access the property. You won't even know they're there. But they will be. I can't let you do all this. You're not letting me. I'm doing it. There's a difference. That night, I stayed for dinner. Harper made spaghetti, the cheap kind from a box with jarred sauce. Rowan insisted I sit next to him. He told me about school, about his teacher Miss Brennan who let them have extra recess if they were good, about his best friend Tyler who could burp the alphabet. Harper watched us from across the table, something soft in her expression. After dinner, we built a puzzle together. 1,000 pieces. A picture of a jungle with hidden animals. Rowan found the corner pieces. I sorted by color. Harper worked on the border. It was normal, domestic, the kind of evening I'd never had growing up, the kind I'd told myself I didn't need. But sitting there in Harper's cramped living room, listening to Rowan's laughter, feeling the warmth of her presence beside me, I realized something. I'd been lying to myself for years. This connection, this feeling of belonging, this was what I'd been missing, what I'd been searching for in boardrooms and bank accounts and empty penthouses. And now that I'd found it, I wasn't letting go. Rowan fell asleep on the couch halfway through the puzzle, his head resting on my arm. Harper smiled and gently lifted him. I'll put him to bed, she whispered. She carried him down the hall. I heard the soft murmur of her voice. A lullaby, maybe, or a prayer. When she came back, she sat beside me on the couch, closer this time. Thank you, she said, for everything, for showing up, for staying, for, she trailed off, looked down at her hands. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. Then what do you want? I looked at her, really looked, at the way her hair fell across her shoulders, at the freckles scattered across her nose, at the strength in her eyes despite everything she'd been through. I want to keep showing up, I said quietly. Not because you need me, but because I want to. Harper's breath caught. Why? Because for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The words hung between us. Honest, vulnerable, terrifying. Harper reached out and took my hand, her fingers intertwined with mine. Beckett, she whispered. I don't know what this is, but I feel it too. We sat there in the quiet, not kissing, not rushing, just present, together. And for the first time since that Halloween night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The investigation moved quickly. Mills, the private investigator, cracked within 48 hours of questioning. He admitted to planting the cameras and the listening device, admitted to following Harper for months. But he wouldn't give up his client. Not at first, until my lawyers got involved. Turns out Mills had a history. Prior arrests for illegal surveillance, a revoked license in California, and a desperate need for money. My legal team offered him immunity in exchange for the name. He took it. Lawson Fairchild. I stared at the name on the report. Who is he? I asked Garrett. We're digging, Garrett said, but preliminary search shows he's Rowan's biological father. Everything stopped. Harper didn't know. She told me her sister never revealed the father's name, never wanted him involved, but he'd found them anyway. And he'd been watching, waiting. For what? I needed to tell Harper, but I needed to know more first. I needed to understand what Lawson wanted. My team worked around the clock. By the end of the week, we had a full profile. Lawson Fairchild, 36 years old, failed entrepreneur, multiple business ventures that went under, mounting debt, gambling problem, and 6 months ago, he'd hired a lawyer to explore his parental rights. He wanted custody of Rowan, but why? He'd never been involved, never paid child support, never even met the kid. Then we found it, buried in legal documents from Harper's sister's estate, a trust fund set up for Rowan, $500,000, accessible only to his legal guardian. Lawson didn't want his son. He wanted the money. I sat in my office staring at the documents, rage building in my chest. This man had terrorized Harper, traumatized a 6-year-old boy, all for money he had no right to. I picked up my phone and called my attorney. I want full custody protection for Harper, whatever it takes. And I want a restraining order against Lawson Fairchild, effective immediately. On what grounds? Harassment, stalking, illegal surveillance. We have everything we need. I'll file today. Good. That night, I drove to Harper's apartment. She was waiting. She'd texted me earlier asking if we could talk. Said Rowan was at a friend's house for a sleepover. First time since Halloween. I knocked. She opened the door immediately. Saw my face. What's wrong? She asked. I came inside. Sat down at the kitchen table. She sat across from me. I need to tell you something, I said. And it's not going to be easy to hear. Harper's face went pale. Just tell me. So I did. I told her everything. About Mills, about Lawson, about the trust fund. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down her face. He wants to take Rowan, she whispered. For money. He's not going to. How can you promise that? I leaned forward, took her hands in mine. Because I'm not going anywhere, and I have resources he can't fight. We're filing for permanent custody protection. We're getting a restraining order. And if he tries anything, he'll have to go through me. Harper shook her head. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. Why? I stood, walked around the table, knelt in front of her so we were eye level. Because you asked me not to leave, I said. And I won't. Harper broke then. Not from fear, from relief, from the overwhelming weight of not being alone anymore. She leaned forward and wrapped her arms around me, buried her face in my shoulder, and cried. I held her, steady, unmoving, a promise made real. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were red but clear. I don't know how to thank you, she said. You don't have to. Then what do you want? I looked at her, at the strength in her eyes, at the vulnerability she was letting me see. I want to stay, I said quietly. Not just for this, for everything. For you, for Rowan, for whatever comes next. Harper stared at me. And then, slowly, she smiled. Okay, she whispered. Stay. And just like that, everything changed. The next morning, I woke up on Harper's couch. Sunlight was streaming through the windows. A blanket I didn't remember grabbing was draped over me. I sat up slowly. My neck was stiff. My back ached, but I felt more rested than I had in months. Harper was in the kitchen. I could hear her moving around. The smell of coffee filled the apartment. I stood and walked over. She was standing at the counter in an oversized sweatshirt and leggings. Her hair was down, messy from sleep. She looked over when she heard me. Morning, she said. Her voice was soft, almost shy. Morning. She poured 2 cups of coffee, handed me one. I didn't ask you to stay the night. You didn't ask me to leave either. She smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes. I'm glad you stayed. Me too. We stood there in the quiet kitchen, drinking coffee, not needing to fill the silence with words. Harper glanced at the clock. Rowan's sleepover ends at 10. I need to pick him up. I'll drive you. You don't have to. I know, but I want to. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. We drove across town to a small house with a fenced yard. Rowan came running out the front door the moment he saw Harper's car. He was wearing the same dinosaur costume from Halloween night. His friend's mom waved from the porch. Rowan climbed into the back seat, saw me in the driver's seat. His face lit up. Mr. Beckett, you're here. I am. Are you staying again? Harper turned in her seat. Rowan, she started. Yes, I said. If that's okay with you. Rowan nodded enthusiastically. Can we build the rest of the puzzle? Absolutely. Harper looked at me. Something warm in her expression. Something that made my chest tighten in the best way. Back at the apartment, we spent the day together. Rowan and I finished the jungle puzzle. Harper made lunch. Grilled cheese and tomato soup. We ate at the kitchen table. Rowan told us about his sleepover, about how they'd watched a movie about talking cars and eaten so much popcorn his stomach hurt. After lunch, Harper did laundry. I helped Rowan with a school project. He had to make a poster about his family. He spread out construction paper and markers on the living room floor. Who's in your family? I asked. Rowan thought for a moment. Mommy, Harper. He pointed at her. And me. He pointed at himself. He picked up a green marker and started drawing. I watched as he drew two stick figures. One tall with long hair, one small with a big smile. Then he picked up a blue marker and drew a third figure, taller than the others, standing next to them. Harper walked over, saw the drawing. Her breath caught. Who's that? She asked gently, pointing at the third figure. Rowan looked up at her, then at me. That's Mr. Beckett. He's part of our family now. Right. The room went very quiet. Harper's eyes filled with tears. She looked at me. I looked at Rowan. If your mom says it's okay, I said carefully, then yes, I'd be honored to be part of your family. Rowan looked at Harper. Is it okay, Mommy? Harper wiped her eyes, nodded. Yes, baby, it's okay. Rowan grinned and went back to coloring. Harper walked to the kitchen. I followed. She was leaning against the counter, hand over her mouth, trying not to cry. I'm sorry, I said quietly. If that was too much, if I overstepped. She shook her head. You didn't. It's just, she looked at me. He's never had that. A father figure. Someone who shows up. And now he does. I stepped closer. Harper. She looked up at me. Her eyes red, but not from sadness. From something deeper. I meant what I said. I told her. I'm not going anywhere. I know this is fast. I know it's complicated, but I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Harper reached up, placed her hand on my chest, right over my heart. I can feel it, she whispered. That, you mean it. I do. She leaned forward, rested her forehead against my shoulder, and for a moment we just stood there, connected, steady. Then Rowan called from the living room. Mr. Beckett, I need help spelling honorary. We both laughed. Harper pulled back, wiped her eyes. Go help him. I'll start dinner. That night became the template for many nights that followed. I started spending more time at Harper's apartment than my own penthouse. I'd show up after work, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with takeout, sometimes with nothing but myself. We'd have dinner together, the three of us, around that small kitchen table. Rowan would talk about school. Harper would tell stories about her day at Maplewood Elementary where she worked as a teacher's aide. After dinner, we'd watch movies, play games, read books. I taught Rowan how to play chess. He was terrible at it, but he loved it anyway. Harper would curl up on the couch beside me. Sometimes she'd fall asleep, her head on my shoulder, and I'd sit there, perfectly still, not wanting to wake her, not wanting the moment to end. On weekends, we'd go places, the zoo, the science center, the park. Rowan would run ahead, chasing pigeons or climbing on playground equipment, and Harper and I would walk behind him, side by side, our hands brushing, then holding. People who saw us probably thought we were a family, and maybe we were becoming one, but in the background, always in the background, was the threat of Lawson Fairchild. My legal team was building the case, gathering evidence, preparing for the fight. But I knew it was only a matter of time before Lawson made his move. That moment came 3 weeks after Halloween. I was in a meeting when Garrett called. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. "What is it?" "Lawson's lawyers just filed a petition for emergency custody," Garrett said. "They're claiming Harper is an unfit guardian, that she's financially unstable, that she's cohabiting with an unrelated male, that Rowan is in an unsafe environment." My jaw clenched. "That's bullshit. I know. But they're pushing for a hearing. Next week." I paced the hallway. "Does Harper know?" "Not yet. I wanted to tell you first." "I'll tell her." I ran my hand through my hair. "Get our attorneys ready. I want a full counterfiling. Evidence of Lawson's surveillance, his stalking, his financial motives, everything. Already on it. And Garrett. Yeah, I want character witnesses. People who can testify to Harper's fitness as a parent. Teachers, neighbors, anyone who knows her and Rowan. I'll compile a list." I ended the call and stood in the empty hallway. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. Lawson was trying to weaponize my presence in Harper's life, trying to use the very thing that had brought us together against her. I wouldn't let him. I drove to Harper's apartment. It was the middle of the day. She'd be at work, but I needed to see her, to tell her in person. I pulled up to Maplewood Elementary, checked in at the front office. They called Harper's classroom. She came out a few minutes later, concern written all over her face. "Beckett, what's wrong? Is Rowan okay?" "Rowan's fine." "Can we talk?" "Somewhere private." We went outside, sat on a bench near the playground. I told her everything. By the time I finished, her face had gone white. "He's using you against me," she whispered. He's saying I'm unfit because of you. He's lying. But what if? What if the judge believes him? What if they take Rowan?" Her voice was rising, panic setting in. I took her hands, looked her in the eyes. "Harper, listen to me. They're not taking Rowan. We have evidence. We have witnesses. We have the truth. And we have the best legal team money can buy." She shook her head, tears spilling over. Maybe you should step back. Stay away for a while, until this is over, so he can't use you." "No, Beckett, no." I said it firmly. "I'm not leaving you to fight this alone. If Lawson wants to come after you, after us, then he's going to have to face both of us. What if we lose?" "We won't. You can't know that." "I can." I leaned closer. "Because I won't let it happen. I promise you, Harper. On everything I am, on everything I have, I will not let him take Rowan." She stared at me, searching my face, looking for doubt, for hesitation. She wouldn't find any. Finally, she nodded. Okay. We fight. Together. The next week was a blur. Meetings with attorneys, depositions, evidence gathering, character witness interviews. Harper's co-workers at the elementary school testified to her dedication, her kindness, her love for Rowan. Neighbors testified that they'd never seen anything but a safe, loving home. Rowan's therapist testified that he was thriving, emotionally healthy, securely attached to Harper. And I testified about how I met Harper, about the surveillance, about Lawson's motives. Lawson's lawyers tried to paint me as an outsider, a wealthy interloper trying to buy his way into a ready-made family. They implied I had ulterior motives, that I was using Harper, but our lawyers countered with the truth, with the timeline, with evidence of Lawson's stalking and harassment, with the trust fund documents that exposed his real agenda. The hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. Family court, Judge Patricia Osmond presiding. The weekend before, Harper was a wreck. She barely slept, barely ate. She kept playing worst-case scenarios in her head. Saturday night, I took her and Rowan to the Seattle waterfront. We walked along the pier, got ice cream, watched the ferries come and go. Rowan ran ahead, chasing seagulls. Harper and I walked slowly, her hand in mine. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know. What if? What if the judge doesn't believe us? What if Lawson gets custody? What if?" I stopped walking, turned to face her. "Harper, look at me." She did. Her eyes were glassy with unshed tears. No matter what happens in that courtroom, I said. No matter what the judge says, we're going to fight. And if we have to appeal, we'll appeal. If we have to take it to a higher court, we'll do that. I will. Spend every dollar I have, every connection I've made, every resource at my disposal, to keep Rowan with you. Do you understand me? She nodded. A tear slipped down her cheek. I reached up and wiped it away with my thumb. You're not alone anymore. I know, she whispered. And that's the scariest part. What do you mean? She looked down. I've been alone for so long, taking care of everything by myself. And now I have you, and I'm terrified of losing you too. My chest tightened. You're not going to lose me. You don't know that. Yes, I do. I tilted her chin up gently so she was looking at me again. Because I love you. The words came out before I could second-guess them, before I could overthink. Harper's breath caught. Her eyes widened. I love you, I said again. Stronger this time. More certain. I didn't plan it. Didn't expect it. But I do. I love you, Harper. And I love Rowan. And nothing is going to change that. Tears streamed down her face now. Beckett, you don't have to say it back, I said quickly. I just needed you to know. Before we walk into that courtroom, before we face whatever comes next, I needed you to know. She stepped forward, closed the distance between us, and kissed me. It wasn't our first kiss. We'd shared a few tentative ones over the past weeks. Soft, careful. But this was different. This was a promise, a claiming, a refusal to let fear win. When we finally pulled apart, she was smiling through her tears. I love you too, she whispered. I've been afraid to say it, afraid it was too soon, too fast, but I do. I love you. Rowan came running back, saw us standing there, holding each other. Are you guys kissing? He asked. His nose scrunched up in exaggerated disgust. We both laughed. Maybe, Harper said. Rowan shrugged. That's okay. Tyler's mom and dad kiss all the time. It's gross, but it means they like each other. We do like each other, I said. A lot. Rowan grinned. Good, because I like you too, Mr. Beckett. He grabbed both our hands and pulled us forward. Come on, I want to see the big ferry. We walked down the pier together, the three of us, hand in hand in hand, a family in every way that mattered. Monday came too quickly. We arrived at the courthouse early. Harper wore a simple navy dress, professional, respectful, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked beautiful and terrified. I wore a suit. My lawyers flanked us on either side. Lawson was already there, standing with his legal team near the courtroom doors. This was the first time I'd seen him in person. He was tall, probably 6'1", dark hair slicked back, expensive suit that didn't quite hide the desperation in his eyes. He looked like a man who'd had money once and was clawing to get it back. When he saw Harper, his expression shifted. Something smug, victorious. Harper's grip on my hand tightened. Don't look at him, I murmured. Just keep walking. We entered the courtroom. It was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, rows of benches, the judge's bench at the front, the Washington state flag in the corner. We took our seats. Lawson and his team sat across the aisle. Judge Osman entered, a woman in her late 50s, gray hair, sharp eyes. She looked like someone who didn't suffer fools. All rise, the bailiff said. We stood. The hearing began. Lawson's attorney went first, presented their case, painted Harper as struggling financially, working long hours, relying on a stranger, painted me as an unknown variable, a risk. They showed photos of my car parked outside Harper's apartment at odd hours, presented statements from neighbors who'd seen me coming and going, implied impropriety. Harper's hand was shaking in mine. Then it was our turn. Our lead attorney stood, presented evidence of Lawson's surveillance, the cameras, the listening devices, Mill's testimony, the timeline showing 6 months of illegal stalking. She presented the trust fund documents, showed the judge Lawson's financial records, his debts, his gambling losses, his sudden interest in a son he'd never met. She called character witnesses, Harper's boss, her neighbor, Rowan's teacher. All of them spoke to Harper's love, her dedication, her sacrifices. Then she called me to the stand. I swore in, sat down, looked at the judge. Lawson's attorney stood for cross-examination. Mr. Hayes, he began, you're a wealthy man. Correct. Yes. And you met Miss Calloway under unusual circumstances. I met her when she called for help, and I responded. You had no obligation to her. No. But I had the ability to help, so I did. And now you're involved with her. I'm in a relationship with her. Yes. Isn't it true that you've spent considerable money on Miss Calloway and her nephew? Security, legal fees, gifts. I've helped where I could. Some might say you're trying to buy your way into this family. I looked directly at Lawson's attorney. I'm not buying anything. I'm showing up. I'm being present. I'm doing what Lawson Fairchild never did. I'm putting Rowan's needs above my own. The attorney's jaw tightened. No further questions. Our attorney stood. Redirect, Your Honor. Judge Osmond nodded. Mr. Hayes, our attorney said, in your professional opinion, given your expertise in security and threat assessment, do you believe Rowan Calloway is safe in Miss Calloway's care? Absolutely. Harper has done everything humanly possible to protect that child. She's worked multiple jobs, sacrificed her own comfort, put his needs above her own. She's exactly the kind of parent every child deserves. And do you believe Mr. Fairchild has Rowan's best interests at heart? I looked at Lawson. He met my eyes. No expression. No, I said. I believe Mr. Fairchild sees Rowan as a means to access money he didn't earn and has no right to. I believe he's willing to traumatize a child to get it. And I believe if he's granted custody, Rowan will suffer. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. No further questions. I stepped down, returned to my seat beside Harper. She squeezed my hand. Thank you, she whispered. The judge called for closing arguments. Both sides presented. Then Judge Osmond sat back, looked at the evidence in front of her, looked at Harper, at Lawson, at me. I've reviewed the evidence, she said, and I've heard the testimony. This is a difficult case, but my priority is the child's best interest. Harper's breathing quickened. The evidence clearly shows, Judge Osmond continued, that Mr. Fairchild has engaged in illegal surveillance and harassment, that his motivations are financial rather than parental, and that he poses a potential threat to the stability and safety of the child. Lawson's face darkened. Furthermore, the evidence shows that Miss Calloway has provided a loving, stable home for Rowan Calloway since his mother's death, that she has prioritized his emotional and physical well-being, and that she has the support of her community and, she glanced at me, of Mr. Hayes. Harper's hand was shaking so hard I could feel it. Therefore, Judge Osmond said, I'm denying Mr. Fairchild's petition for custody. Full legal and physical custody remains with Miss Harper Calloway. Additionally, I'm granting a restraining order. Mr. Fairchild is to have no contact with Miss Calloway or Rowan Calloway. Violation will result in immediate arrest. She banged her gavel. It was over. Harper broke down, sobbing into her hands, relief pouring out of her in waves. I wrapped my arms around her, held her tight. It's okay, I whispered. He can't touch you. He can't touch Rowan. It's over. Across the aisle, Lawson stood abruptly, his face twisted in rage. He started toward us, but his attorney grabbed his arm, pulled him back. Security escorted him out. Our legal team congratulated us, shook our hands. Harper thanked them through her tears. We walked out of the courthouse into the November sunlight. The air was cold and crisp. The sky was clear. Harper stopped on the steps, turned to me. We won, she said, like she couldn't quite believe it. We won. She threw her arms around me, held on like she'd never let go, and standing there on the courthouse steps, holding the woman I loved, knowing the child we both loved was safe, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. We picked Rowan up from Harper's neighbor, who'd been watching him during the hearing. The moment we walked through the door, Rowan ran to Harper. Did you win, Mommy? He asked. Harper knelt down, pulled him into her arms. Yes, baby. We won. You're staying with me. Forever. Rowan looked confused. I was always staying with you. Harper laughed through fresh tears. You're right. You were. He looked at me over Harper's shoulder. Did you help? I did my best. Rowan wiggled out of Harper's arms and ran to me, threw his little arms around my legs. "Thank you, Mr. Beckett." I picked him up, held him close. "You're welcome, buddy." That night we celebrated. Nothing fancy, just the three of us. Pizza from Rowan's favorite place. A movie on the couch. Rowan falling asleep between us before the credits rolled. Harper looked at me over his sleeping form. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," she whispered. "For something to go wrong." "Nothing's going wrong." "How do you know?" "Because we won't let it." She reached across Rowan, took my hand. "I don't know what I did to deserve you." "You called," I said simply, and I answered. Best wrong number I ever dialed. Best call I ever received. The weeks that followed were the happiest of my life. I still went to work, still ran my company, but I left the office at 5 instead of 9. I stopped taking calls during dinner. I learned to delegate, to trust my team, to prioritize what actually mattered. And what mattered was Harper and Rowan. I started keeping clothes at Harper's apartment, a drawer in her bedroom, space in the bathroom, my toothbrush next to hers. We fell into a rhythm, a routine. I'd pick Rowan up from school. Harper would meet us at home. We'd cook dinner together, help with homework, give baths, read bedtime stories. On weekends we'd explore the city, the farmer's market, the waterfront, bookstores where Rowan would spend an hour choosing one book while Harper and I browsed hand in hand. We were building something, slowly, carefully, a foundation that felt solid and real. But I knew there was something missing, something we hadn't talked about, something I needed to make official. I wanted to marry her. The thought had been growing for weeks. Every time I left her apartment to go back to my empty penthouse. Every time Rowan called me Mr. Beckett instead of something more. Every time Harper introduced me as her boyfriend when I wanted to be so much more. I wanted to be her husband. I wanted to be Rowan's father, not just in practice, but in name, in legal binding permanent commitment. But I didn't know if Harper was ready, if it was too soon, if I'd scare her away by moving too fast. So I waited, and watched, and looked for signs. Thanksgiving came. Harper invited me to spend it with them, just the three of us. She cooked a small turkey, made stuffing from a box, burned the rolls, but we ate them anyway. After dinner, we went around the table saying what we were thankful for. Rowan went first. "I'm thankful for dinosaurs and Mr. Beckett and Mommy and that we get to stay together forever." Harper went next. "I'm thankful for second chances and for people who show up when they don't have to." She looked at me, her eyes soft. Then it was my turn. I looked at them. At Harper with her messy bun and oversized sweater. At Rowan with mashed potatoes on his face and joy in his eyes. At the life we were building in this small apartment that felt more like home than anywhere I'd ever lived. "I'm thankful for wrong numbers," I said, "and for the family I didn't know I was looking for." Harper reached across the table, squeezed my hand. Her eyes filled with tears. That night after Rowan went to bed, we sat on the couch. The TV was on, but neither of us were watching it. "Can I ask you something?" Harper said. "Anything." She turned to face me, pulled her legs up underneath her. "Where do you see this going?" "This, us, you and me, Rowan, all of it." I took a breath, decided to be honest. "I see it going everywhere. I see mornings and nights, holidays and regular Tuesdays, school pickups and bedtime stories. I see." I paused. "I see forever, if you'll have me." Harper's breath caught. "Beckett, I'm not asking you to decide right now," I said quickly. I wanted you to know where my head is, where my heart is." She stared at me, and I realized she was smiling, tears running down her face but smiling. "I see forever too," she whispered. Yeah. I kissed her then, slow and deep, a promise of everything we hadn't said yet, everything we would say. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. "I never thought I'd have this," she said. "After my sister died, after everything with Lawson, I thought it was just going to be me and Rowan against the world. And that was okay. I was okay with that. But then you showed up, and you stayed, and you made me believe in more. You deserve more," I said. "You always did. So do you." We stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, not needing anything else. December arrived with the first snow. Seattle didn't get snow often, But when it did, the whole city transformed. Everything looked clean and new, quiet and magical. Rowan was ecstatic. He'd never really experienced snow. Harper and I took him to a park, built a snowman, had a snowball fight, came home frozen and laughing. I started thinking about Christmas, about what to get them, what would be meaningful without being overwhelming. For Rowan, it was easy. He'd been talking about wanting a telescope, something to see the stars, the moon, maybe even planets if we were lucky. For Harper, it was harder. She didn't want things, didn't need material gifts. She needed security, stability, a future she could count on. And I wanted to give her that. I wanted to give her everything. So I made a decision. I was going to ask her to marry me. On Christmas Eve, in a way that meant something. That honored what we'd built together. I started planning. First, the ring. I didn't want something flashy. Harper wasn't flashy. She was real, grounded, beautiful in her simplicity. I went to a small jeweler in downtown Seattle, a family-owned place that had been there for 60 years. I explained what I was looking for. Something elegant but understated. Something that would fit her life, her style. The jeweler showed me dozens of options, but the moment I saw it, I knew. A platinum band, simple, delicate, with a single, round diamond. Not huge, maybe a carat, but flawless, clear, the kind of stone that caught light and held it. It was perfect. I bought it, had it sized, picked it up a week later. Now I just needed the right moment. I invited Harper and Rowan to spend Christmas Eve at my penthouse. Harper was hesitant at first. She'd never been to my place. I'd always come to hers. She felt like my world was so different from hers, like she wouldn't fit. But I insisted, told her I wanted to show her where I lived, where I spent my time when I wasn't with them. She finally agreed. Christmas Eve arrived. I spent the entire day preparing. I had the penthouse decorated, not by a professional, by me. White lights strung along the windows, a tall Christmas tree in the corner by the fireplace, ornaments I'd bought specifically for this, a star on top that Rowan could help me place. I cooked dinner myself. Well, I tried. I ordered most of it from a restaurant, but I made the mashed potatoes and the green beans. It was the thought that counted. The sun was setting when they arrived. I heard the elevator ding, opened the door before they could knock. Harper stood there holding Rowan's hand. She was wearing a deep red sweater dress, her hair down in soft waves, minimal makeup. She looked stunning. Rowan was wearing a button-down shirt and tiny dress pants. His hair was combed. He looked so grown up it made my chest ache. "Wow," Rowan said, his eyes wide as he looked past me into the penthouse. "This is your house." "It is. It's really big." I laughed. "Yeah, it is." Harper stepped inside, looked around. The floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights twinkling below, the Christmas tree glowing in the corner. "Beckett," she breathed. "This is beautiful. I'm glad you're here." Rowan ran to the tree. "Can I look at the ornaments?" "Go ahead." He knelt down, started examining each one with the serious concentration only a 6-year-old could muster. Harper turned to me. "You did all this. I wanted tonight to be special. It already is." We had dinner on the terrace. I'd had it enclosed with clear panels so we could see the city but stay warm. Heaters glowed overhead. The table was set simply. Candles, white plates, food served family style so we could pass dishes and talk and laugh. Rowan told us about the Christmas play at school, how he'd been a shepherd, how Tyler had forgotten his lines and just stood there until the teacher whispered them. Harper talked about her students, about how one of them had given her a handmade ornament, a popsicle stick frame with a photo of the two of them, and I just listened, soaking it in, memorizing every detail, every smile, every laugh. After dinner, we moved inside. Rowan wanted to watch a movie. We put on the Polar Express, curled up on the couch together. Halfway through, Rowan fell asleep, his head on Harper's lap, his little body completely relaxed. Harper looked down at him, stroked his hair. "He had the best day," she whispered. "So did I." She looked at me. "Thank you for all of this, for making him feel special, for making us feel." She trailed off. "Feel what?" Like we belong here. With you. You do belong here. Both of you. I stood. Held out my hand. Come with me for a minute. What about Rowan? He's asleep. We'll just be on the terrace. We can see him from there. She hesitated. Then took my hand. I led her outside. The city sprawled below us. Lights everywhere. Like fallen stars. The Space Needle glowed in the distance. The sound of distant traffic was muffled by the height. It's so beautiful, Harper said. It is, but I rarely noticed before. I was always working, always focused on the next deal, the next acquisition. I never stopped to just be. And now I notice everything. Because of you. She turned to face me. Beckett, this is it. This is the moment. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. I'd faced down hostile board meetings, negotiated billion-dollar deals, built an empire from nothing, but I'd never been more nervous than I was right now. Harper, I started. 6 weeks ago, I got a phone call at 2:47 in the morning. A wrong number from a woman I'd never met. And I almost didn't answer. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me pick up. Harper's eyes were filling with tears. You were terrified, I continued. You were alone. You were fighting for someone you loved. And you asked me not to leave. And I didn't. And every single day since then, I've been grateful. Because that call, that wrong number, it brought me to you. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the small velvet box. Harper's hand flew to her mouth. I knelt down. Beckett, she gasped. I love you, I said. I love you, and I love Rowan, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing up for you. Not because you need me to, but because I need to. Because you're my home. You're my family. You're my everything. I opened the box. The ring caught the light from the city below, sparkled like it was made of starlight. Harper Calloway, will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face. She was nodding before she could speak. Yes, she finally choked out. Yes, yes. I stood, slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. She threw her arms around me. I love you, she said into my shoulder. I love you so much. I held her tight, breathing her in, feeling like every broken piece of my life had finally clicked into place. When we pulled apart, she looked at the ring, turned her hand so it caught the light. It's perfect, she whispered. You're perfect. We kissed, long and slow, the kind of kiss that promised forever. Behind us, the sliding door opened. We turned. Rowan stood there, rubbing his eyes. What are you doing? Harper laughed, wiped her tears. Come here, baby. Rowan patted over, still half asleep. Harper knelt down, showed him the ring. Mr. Beckett asked me to marry him. Rowan blinked. What does that mean? It means, I said, kneeling beside Harper, it means I want to be part of your family officially. Forever. If that's okay with you. Rowan looked at me. Then at Harper. Then back at me. Will you be my dad? My throat tightened. I would be honored to be your dad. Rowan thought about it for exactly 2 seconds, then grinned. Okay, can I call you Dad now? Harper and I both laughed through our tears. Yeah, buddy, I said. You can call me Dad. Rowan hugged me, then hugged Harper, then hugged both of us at the same time, his little arms trying to wrap around us both. We stood there on the terrace, the three of us, holding each other, a family in every way that mattered, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be home. If you're still with me, if this story is touching your heart, hit that subscribe button. Because we're about to bring this home, and I promise you, you don't want to miss how this ends. Drop a comment. Tell me, have you ever experienced a moment that changed everything? Let me know below. The next few months were a whirlwind. We set a wedding date, June 15th, 6 months away. Enough time to plan, but not so long we had to wait forever. Harper moved into the penthouse. It took some convincing. She felt like she was giving up her independence, like she was becoming dependent on me in a way that scared her. But I reminded her, this isn't about dependence. It's about partnership, about building something together. We compromised. She kept her job at the elementary school, kept her own bank account, made decisions equally. The penthouse became ours, not mine. Ours. We redecorated Rowan's room together, painted it blue, put up glow in the dark stars, set up the telescope by the window so he could look at the night sky. Harper's things mixed with mine, her books on my shelves, her photos on my walls, her coffee mug in my kitchen. The penthouse that had felt like a museum, cold and empty, came alive. There was noise, laughter, Rowan's dinosaur toys scattered across the living room floor, Harper's sweaters draped over chairs, the smell of her perfume, the sound of her voice. It became a home. I officially adopted Rowan in March. It was a simple process since Harper had full custody and there was no contest. We stood in front of a judge, different courthouse, different outcome. The judge signed the papers, looked at Rowan. "Young man," she said, "do you understand what's happening today?" Rowan nodded seriously. "Mr. Beckett is becoming my dad. For real." "That's right. How do you feel about that?" "I feel good. He's really nice, and he makes my mom happy, and he helps me with my homework even when it's hard." The judge smiled. "Sounds like a good dad to me." She stamped the documents. "It's official. Congratulations." Walking out of that courthouse with adoption papers in hand, with Rowan legally my son, with Harper beaming beside me, I felt a completion I'd never known was missing. Rowan started calling me Dad everywhere. At school, at the park, to his friends, to strangers, and every single time, my heart swelled. The wedding planning was surprisingly easy. We both wanted something small, intimate, just the people who mattered. Harper didn't have much family, a few cousins she wasn't close to, some friends from work. I didn't have any family, but I had colleagues who'd become friends. Garrett, my executive assistant Monica, a few others who'd been with me since the early days. We decided on a small chapel, garden setting, wildflowers, fairy lights, nothing extravagant, just beautiful and meaningful. Rowan would be the ring bearer. He took his job very seriously, practiced walking slowly, carrying the pillow, not dropping the rings. Harper found a dress, simple, white, tea-length, lace sleeves. She looked like something out of a dream when she tried it on. I wasn't supposed to see it, but she sent me a photo anyway. Couldn't resist. I had my suit tailored. Charcoal gray, white shirt, silver tie. Rowan had a matching outfit. He was so excited he could barely stand still for the fittings. The weeks leading up to the wedding were full of small moments. Tasting cakes, choosing flowers, writing vows. I struggled with mine. How do you put into words what someone means to you? How they changed you, saved you, made you believe in things you'd given up on. I must have written 20 drafts. Crossed out, started over. Finally, Harper found me at 2 a.m. sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by crumpled paper. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Can't get the vows right." She sat beside me, read what I'd written, looked up at me with soft eyes. "Beckett, these are perfect. They don't say enough. They say everything. But," she took my hand, "just speak from your heart. That's all I need. That's all I've ever needed." June 15th arrived warm and clear. Perfect weather, the kind of day that felt like the universe was conspiring in our favor. The ceremony was at 4, small chapel on the outskirts of Seattle, surrounded by gardens, roses and peonies and lavender. The scent was intoxicating. Guests arrived, maybe 40 people, friends, colleagues, Rowan's teacher, our neighbors, people who'd been part of our journey. I stood at the altar, Garrett beside me as my best man. The officiant, a kind woman in her 60s who'd listened to our story and cried, was ready. Music started, soft, acoustic guitar. The doors opened, and there she was, Harper, walking down the aisle. No father to give her away. She was giving herself, strong, independent, choosing this, choosing me. She wore the white dress, carried a bouquet of wildflowers. Her hair was half up, soft curls framing her face. She wasn't wearing much makeup, didn't need to. She was radiant. Beside her, holding her hand, was Rowan, wearing his little suit, carrying the ring pillow, grinning so wide I thought his face might split. They walked together, mother and son, my family, coming toward me. When they reached the altar, Rowan handed the rings to the officiant, then looked at me. I didn't drop them, Dad. Everyone laughed, including me. Good job, buddy. He went to sit in the front row. Harper stepped up beside me, took my hands, and the world fell away. The officiant spoke about love, about commitment, about the journey that brought us here, but I barely heard. I was too focused on Harper, on her eyes, on the way she was looking at me like I was her whole world. When it came time for vows, she went first. "Beckett," she began, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "I asked you not to leave me, and you stayed. You stayed when you didn't have to. You stayed when it was hard. You stayed when I didn't think anyone would. So now, I'm promising you the same thing. I will stay. Through everything. Through good days and hard ones. Through joy and grief. Through every moment life throws at us. I will stay. For always." She took a breath. "You gave me something I didn't know I'd lost. Hope. You showed me that love doesn't have to be complicated or conditional. That sometimes it's as simple as showing up, as being present, as choosing each other every single day. And I choose you. Today, tomorrow, forever." Tears were streaming down her face now, but she was smiling. My turn. I took a breath, tried to steady my voice. "Harper, you called me on the worst night, and it became the best night of my life. Because it brought me to you, to Rowan. You gave me something I didn't know I was missing. A home, not a place, but a feeling, a sense of belonging, of being needed. Not for what I have, but for who I am." My voice cracked. I cleared my throat, continued. "I spent most of my life alone, convinced I didn't need anyone, that I was better off that way. And then you whispered 3 words. Don't leave me. And everything changed, because I realized I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to be alone. I wanted this. You. Us." I squeezed her hands. "I promise you, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you and Rowan know you're safe. You're loved. You're cherished. I will show up every day, in every way, because you're not just my wife, you're my family, my everything." The officiant was crying now too. She cleared her throat, smiled, "By the power vested in me by the state of Washington, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." I pulled Harper close, kissed her, long and deep, the kind of kiss that seals a promise, that starts forever. The small crowd erupted in applause. Rowan jumped up from his seat. "Are you married now?" "We are," Harper said. "So you're really my dad now." "I was already your dad," I said. "But now it's extra official." He ran to us. We scooped him up, the 3 of us. A family. Complete. The reception was in the garden. Tables set up under string lights. Simple food. Good wine. Music playing softly in the background. We danced. Harper and I. Our first dance as husband and wife. To a song about coming home, about finding where you belong. Then I danced with Rowan, let him stand on my feet, spun him around until he was dizzy with laughter. Harper danced with Garrett, with Monica, with friends. We cut the cake, fed each other bites, didn't smash it in each other's faces like some couples do. Just gentle, sweet, loving. As the sun set, as the lights twinkled overhead, as our guests laughed and talked and celebrated, I pulled Harper aside. We walked to the edge of the garden, away from the noise, just the 2 of us. "Happy?" I asked. She looked up at me, more than I knew was possible. "Me too." She leaned into me, rested her head on my shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For answering the phone." I kissed the top of her head. "Best decision I ever made." We stood there for a while, just holding each other, watching the sky turn from gold to purple to deep blue. "This is everything I never knew I wanted," I said. "You, Rowan, this life." "I know what you mean," Harper said. "I spent so long just trying to survive, and now I'm actually living. We're both living. Finally." The reception wound down. Guests left. Rowan fell asleep in a chair. We carried him to the car, drove home, to the penthouse, our home. put him to bed, still in his little suit because we didn't want to wake him. Then Harper and I collapsed onto the couch, exhausted, happy, married. We made it, she said. We did. She turned to look at me. I love you, Beckett Hayes. I love you too, Harper Hayes. Her eyes widened. Harper Hayes. That's my name now. That's your name. She grinned. I like it. Me too. We stayed up late, talking, laughing, reliving the day, making plans for the honeymoon, for the future, for everything. And when we finally went to bed, when I held my wife in my arms, when I listened to the sound of my son breathing in the next room, I felt a peace I'd never known. This was it. This was everything. Summer turned to fall. We settled into married life. It was surprisingly easy. We'd already been living together, already functioning as a family. The rings on our fingers didn't change much, except they made it official, permanent, real. Rowan started first grade. Harper went back to work. I adjusted my schedule to make sure I was home for dinner, for bedtime, for the moments that mattered. We took our honeymoon in September, just a long weekend. We went to the San Juan Islands, rented a small house on the water, brought Rowan with us because we couldn't imagine going without him. We explored tide pools, went whale watching, built bonfires on the beach, roasted marshmallows, told stories under the stars. It was perfect in its simplicity. October came again, a full year since that Halloween night. Harper suggested we do something to mark the anniversary. Not celebrate exactly, but acknowledge, remember. So on October 30th, 1st, Halloween night, we returned to Hollowbrook Estate. It looked different in the daylight, less menacing. The Historical Society had finished renovations. It was beautiful now, restored to its original Victorian glory. We walked through the halls, Rowan running ahead. Not knowing this was where his mom had been terrified, where everything had changed. Harper and I walked slowly, hand in hand, looking at the rooms that had been dark and threatening. Now they were bright and welcoming. We found the storage room, the place where Harper and Rowan had hidden, where I'd found them. It was empty now, just a clean room with windows letting in afternoon light. This is where you were, I said. Harper nodded. I was so scared. I thought it was over, that whoever was out there was going to hurt us. And then you walked in, and you said, "Don't leave me." She smiled. Best thing I ever said. I disagree. The best thing you said was "I do." She laughed. Kissed me. Okay, second best. We left Hollowbrook Estate, drove home, ordered pizza, carved pumpkins with Rowan, watched a Halloween movie, something silly and not scary. After Rowan went to bed, Harper and I sat on the terrace, looking at the city, the same view we'd stood under when I proposed. A lot can change in a year, Harper said. Everything can change. Are you happy? I looked at her, at my wife, my partner, my home. I'm happier than I ever thought possible. Me too. She rested her head on my shoulder. You know what's funny? What? If that nurse hadn't dialed the wrong number, if you hadn't answered, if you'd ignored it or hung up, none of this would have happened. I know. We wouldn't have met, wouldn't have fallen in love, wouldn't be sitting here. I pulled her closer, but we did meet. I did answer, and we are sitting here. And I don't believe that's an accident. You think it was fate? I paused, searching for the right words. I think sometimes the universe puts people exactly where they need to be, even if the path there doesn't make sense, even if it starts with a wrong number. Harper smiled. I like that. Besides, it wasn't the wrong number. It was exactly the right one. We sat in comfortable silence, the city lights twinkling below, the sound of distant traffic, the warmth of each other. Can I tell you something? Harper said after a while. Always. I'm pregnant. The world stopped. I turned to look at her. She was smiling, tears in her eyes. Happy tears. I couldn't finish the sentence. I'm pregnant. About 8 weeks. I found out yesterday. I wanted to wait to tell you on today. On our anniversary. My hands were shaking. We're having a baby. We're having a baby. I stood, pulled her up, spun her around. She laughed, held on to me. When I set her down, I kissed her, long and deep and full of joy. Rowan's going to be a big brother, I said. He is. Are you happy? Happy doesn't even begin to cover it. We stood there holding each other, a family of 3 about to become 4, and I thought about the journey, about the call that started it all, about the fear and the courage and the choice to show up. Life had a funny way of working out, of taking broken pieces and making them whole, of turning wrong numbers into forever. Harper and I moved inside, made hot chocolate, talked about the future, about baby names, about how to tell Rowan, about expanding our family in ways we'd only dreamed about. And as I sat there with my wife, in the home we'd built together, talking about the life growing inside her, I realized something. I'd spent 34 years searching for success, for achievement, for validation, but I'd been looking in all the wrong places, because this, right here, this was success, this was achievement, this was everything. A family, a home, a love that chose to stay, that chose to fight, that chose to build something beautiful out of broken pieces. This was what mattered. Months passed. Winter came, then spring. Harper's belly grew. Rowan was ecstatic about becoming a big brother. He talked to the baby, read stories, promised to teach them about dinosaurs. We prepared the nursery, painted it soft yellow, gender neutral, because we wanted to be surprised. Set up a crib, a changing table, filled it with tiny clothes and blankets and stuffed animals. Harper glowed, literally glowed with happiness and health and anticipation. I went to every doctor's appointment, held her hand during ultrasounds, watched our baby move on the screen, heard the heartbeat, strong and steady. In May, 3 weeks before her due date, Harper went into labor. It was 2 a.m, fitting really. That's when everything important in our lives seemed to happen. She woke me up, gripped my hand. I think it's time. We got Rowan to our neighbor, grabbed the hospital bag, drove through the quiet city streets, checked into the hospital, got Harper settled. She labored for 6 hours. I stayed by her side the whole time, held her hand, breathed with her, told her she was strong, she was amazing. She could do this, and she did. At 8:32 in the morning on May 23rd, our daughter was born. She came into the world crying, loud and strong. The doctor placed her on Harper's chest. She was tiny, pink, perfect. Harper sobbed, held her close, looked at me with so much love I thought I might break from it. "We have a daughter," she whispered. I leaned down, kissed Harper's forehead, then gently touched our daughter's tiny hand. She gripped my finger, held on tight. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, my voice cracking. "Welcome to the world." We named her Claire, after Harper's sister, so she'd always be with us, always remembered. Rowan met her later that day. He climbed onto the hospital bed carefully, looked at his baby sister with wide eyes. "She's so small," he whispered. "She is," Harper said, "but she'll grow, and you're going to help us take care of her. I can teach her about dinosaurs. When she's bigger, okay?" He reached out, touched her tiny hand, the same way I had. Claire gripped his finger too. "She likes me," Rowan said, grinning. "She loves you," I said. "We all do." We brought Claire home 2 days later, drove slowly, carefully, our precious cargo in the back seat, Rowan sitting beside her car seat, watching over her like a tiny guardian. The penthouse filled with new sounds, baby cries, lullabies, laughter, the exhausted but happy chaos of new parenthood, sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, feedings every 2 hours. It was hard, exhausting, beautiful. Harper and I took turns, supported each other, learned together, made mistakes and laughed about them. Rowan was an amazing big brother. He'd bring us diapers, help with bottles, sing to Claire when she cried. Our family of 3 had become 4, and it was perfect. Summer came again. Claire grew, started smiling, laughing, reaching for things. She had Harper's eyes, my dark hair, Rowan's joyful spirit. We took family photos, professional ones, all 4 of us, sent them to friends, put them in frames all over the house. The penthouse that had once been cold and empty was now full of life, of noise, of love, of proof that broken people can heal, that wrong numbers can lead to right places, that family is what you build, not just what you're born into. One night in late August, after both kids were asleep, Harper and I sat on the terrace, our spot, where so many important moments had happened. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "Halloween, when I called, all the time. What do you think about how different my life would be if I hadn't answered? If I'd let it go to voicemail, if I'd decided it wasn't my problem. But you didn't." "No, I didn't." And now, I looked at the city, then back at her. "Now I have everything." She took my hand. "So do I." I was so lost, so scared, so alone. "And you showed up. I always will." "I know. And that's the most amazing part, that you keep choosing us. Every day." "It's not a choice anymore," I said. "It's just who I am now. A husband, a father, a man who finally understands what home means." Harper leaned against me. We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes when you don't need words, when just being together is enough. "I never told you this," she said after a while, "but that night, when I called, I almost didn't. I almost just hid and waited and hoped whoever was in the house would leave. I almost didn't ask for help. What changed your mind?" "Rowan." She looked toward the penthouse, toward our sleeping children. I looked at him, so scared, so small, and I thought, I have to do something. I have to try, even if it's a wrong number, even if no one comes. I have to try. "I'm glad you did." "Me too. Because you came. You actually came. And you stayed. And you," she turned to face me fully, "you changed everything. So did you." We kissed, soft and sweet. A kiss between two people who'd found each other in the darkness, who'd built a life in the light. The years that followed were full. Happy, not perfect. We had challenges. Hard days, disagreements, sleepless nights, sick kids, work stress, all the normal things that come with life and marriage and family. But we faced them together, always together. Rowan grew, became an amazing kid, smart, kind, funny. He excelled in school, made friends, discovered a love for science, wanted to be an astronaut, or a paleontologist, or both. Claire grew, became a bright, curious little girl. She adored her big brother, followed him everywhere, learned to walk, to talk, to charm everyone she met. Harper and I grew together, learned each other, supported each other, built a partnership that was equal and strong and full of love. I scaled back at work, hired a CEO to run day-to-day operations, became more of a chairman, present but not consumed. It gave me time for what mattered. We took family vacations, went camping, visited national parks, taught the kids to appreciate nature, to be curious, to be kind. We had family dinners every night, no phones, no distractions, just conversation and laughter and connection. We built traditions, Halloween movie marathons, Christmas morning pancakes, summer barbecues, birthday treasure hunts. We built a life, and it was everything. On our 5th wedding anniversary, June 15th again, we renewed our vows. Small ceremony, just us and the kids. On the terrace of our home, Harper wore a simple white dress. I wore a suit. Rowan and Claire stood beside us. Part of the ceremony, part of the promise. We spoke new vows, built on 5 years of marriage, of growth, of learning. Harper promised to keep choosing me, even on hard days, even when it wasn't easy, even when life got messy. I promised to keep showing up, to keep being present, to keep putting family first, and the kids promised to keep making us laugh, to keep us young, to remind us what really mattered. It wasn't legally binding. We were already married, but it felt important, to mark the milestone, to recommit, to celebrate how far we'd come. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, Harper and I looked through old photos, pictures from Halloween night. Well, not that night, but the days after, the courthouse, the Christmas proposal, the wedding, Claire's birth, family vacations, evidence of a life built. of love that grew, of a family that chose each other. "Look at us," Harper said, looking at our wedding photo. "We look so young." We were young. 5 years ago feels like a lifetime. It does, but also like yesterday. "I know what you mean." She looked at me. "Do you have any regrets?" "Not a single one. Really, nothing you'd change." I thought about it, honestly considered, then shook my head. No, because even the hard parts, even the scary parts, they led us here. And I wouldn't trade here for anything. Harper smiled. Me neither. We sat in comfortable silence. Then Harper laughed. "What?" I was just thinking, if someone had told me 5 years ago that a wrong number on Halloween would lead to all this. To you, to marriage, to Claire, to this life, I would have thought they were crazy. Life is crazy. The best kind of crazy. Absolutely. Years continued to pass. Rowan became a teenager. Tall, thoughtful, still kind, still brilliant. He applied to colleges, got accepted to his first choice, a school with a strong aerospace program. He was going to chase his dreams. And Harper and I couldn't have been prouder. Claire grew into a bright 12-year-old. Creative, artistic. She loved to draw, to paint, to create. Her room was covered in her artwork. We supported every passion, every interest. Harper and I grew older together. Graying hair, laugh lines, the beautiful evidence of a life lived fully. We never forgot where we started. The fear, the darkness, the desperate call in the middle of the night. Every Halloween, we told the story. To the kids, to friends, to anyone who asked how we met. It became our legend, our origin story, the foundation of everything we built. And every year on October 31st, I'd look at Harper, at our family, at the life we'd created from a moment of terror and desperation, and I'd think the same thing I'd thought that very first night, when I saw her trembling in that storage room, when she whispered, "Don't leave me." I'd think, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Now, all these years later, sitting on my terrace, watching another Halloween night settle over Seattle, with my wife beside me, my kids inside, my life full and rich and meaningful. I finally understand what I was searching for all those years. When I built my company, when I made my fortune, when I achieved every goal I'd set, I was searching for this, for belonging, for connection, for love that stays, for family, for home, and I found it. Not in a boardroom or a bank account or a penthouse overlooking the city. I found it in a wrong number, in a terrified whisper, in 3 simple words. Don't leave me. I found it in choosing to show up, to stay, to fight, to love. And that's the real success, the real achievement, the real wealth, not money, not power, not fame, but love, family, connection, purpose, meaning. Those are the things that matter, the things that last, the things that make a life worth living. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this. Answer the call, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's not your responsibility, even when it would be easier to walk away. Show up. Be present. Be willing to fight for people, even strangers, especially strangers, because you never know. That call, that moment, that choice, it could change everything. It did for me, and I would do it all again, 1,000 times over, because the best things in life, the most important things, they often come from the most unexpected places, from a wrong number on Halloween night, from a woman trembling in the dark, from 3 words whispered in desperation. Don't leave me. I didn't, and it made all the difference. This is Beckett Hayes, husband, father, man who finally found his way home. And this is my story. Thank you for being here, for listening, for staying with me through every moment. If this story touched you, if it moved you, if it reminded you of the power of showing up and choosing love, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Mr. Hearthline Stories, because there are more stories to tell, more lives to explore, more lessons to learn. And drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Or just say, I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline. Let me know this story reached you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's lost, someone who's scared, someone who needs to be reminded that beautiful things can grow from broken places. Because they can. I'm living proof. Until next time, this is Mr. Hearthline, reminding you to always answer the call, to always show up, to always choose love, because you never know. It might just change everything.